All right. Well, I guess we will get started since it's just after 2 o'clock. Welcome to the ECOP Wednesdays. Um, my name is Anne, and I will be moderating today's session. So I'm very glad that you can have joined us. I just wanted to start off with a few housekeeping rules. Please make sure that your name is clearly entered. Keep your microphone muted unless you are speaking. Raise your hand if you'd like to speak. You can also use the chat function to make comments and ask questions. So we'll be checking those as the webinar progresses. And then finally, please be respectful and use appropriate language. Um, just a little bit about the ECOP network for any of you who are new. We're a network for early career ocean professionals, or ECOPs, facilitated at the European Marine Board member organizations. We were established by the European Marine Board Young Ambassadors and the Secretariat, and we're a formal part of the EMB, or the European Marine Board. We're also part of the Consortium for Emerging Ocean Leaders since June, and we hope that this network is an opportunity to network and meet peers across Europe and gain a voice at the European Marine Board level. And we have these webinars every Wednesday of the month, generally, give or take a few. So we're really glad that you can be here today. Today we will be joined by Marco Boccia and Vanessa Arellano. Marco Boccia has worked in the field of ocean governance for almost 2 decades. He has covered several roles within various international organizations, such as the International Ocean Institute, the European Commission Directorate General for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, the Fisheries and Aquaculture Department of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and now with the United Nations Secretariat in the Division for Ocean Affairs and the Law of the Sea and the Office of Legal Affairs. Currently, he leads the team on the regular process for global reporting and assessment of the state of the marine environment, including socioeconomic aspects, which is the intergovernmental process that produces the World Ocean Assessment. Vanessa is a legal officer in the Division for Ocean Affairs and the Law of the Sea of the United Nations, Office of Legal Affairs, where she primarily focuses on supporting the implementation of capacity building programs. She's a lawyer, graduated from Pontificia Universidad Católica del Ecuador, apologies for the pronunciation, qualified to practice law in both Ecuador and Chile. She holds 2 degrees in public international law, specializing in the law of the sea, the first from the University College London and the second from Heidelberg University in collaboration with the University of Chile. She is currently pursuing her PhD in the law of the sea at the University of Hamburg, and her previous professional experiences includes roles at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ecuador and the law firm in Chile. Today, they will be speaking about their work at the Division for Ocean Affairs and Law of the Sea. Specifically, they'll cover fellowship programs and the regular process for global reporting and assessment of the state of the marine environment, including socioeconomic aspects that leads the World Ocean Assessments. We'll try to save around 15 minutes or so at the end for questions. So I'm really looking forward to both the presentation and the discussion that we'll have afterwards. Before I give the word over to them, I just wanted to take the opportunity as well to introduce our next webinar, which will happen on the 4th of March. Daniel Clemente will discuss whether wave energy is a possible solution for making seawater desalination more sustainable. So without further ado, I'll give the word over to our esteemed speakers today, and thank you very much for being here on behalf of all the ECOPs.
I'll give the honors to my colleague Marco, but in the meantime, thank you very much, Anne, for that very kind introduction, and through you to the ECOPs, to the Young Ambassador for extending this kind invitation and for giving us the opportunity to talk to you about the work that we do from the division. And I see my colleague now.
Yes, apologies. I had some issues with the screen. Yes, well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And just to begin with, I wanted to thank you for inviting us to this discussions. I think I was just previously mentioning that how important it is the role of ECOPs in our work. This is something that has been increasingly recognized here at the UN and also in other organizations. So we're very pleased that to have some time with you and explain possible collaboration with our office. So I'll go more in details later on, but perhaps I'll pass the floor first to my colleague Vanessa, who will talk first about the division and then the specific section on capacity building and see possible entry points for ECOPs there. And then I'll take over the discussion on the regular process and the evaluation assessment and see how actually ECOPs has been integrated in the governance structure of this process. So more to come, and over to Vanessa for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. While you launch the slides on your end, yes, I will speak to you about the fellowship program opportunities that we have at the division. And to put them into context, I will provide an overview of the functions of DOALOS, which is the division. I will refer to it as DOALOS from now on. And I also will provide an overview on the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, as my colleague anticipating for you to identify entry points, but also the relevance of this instrument for the work that as ECOPs you undertake. And then we have left some room for a Q&A segment to hopefully address some of the questions that you may have and engage with an enriching comments as well and interaction with you. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Division for Ocean Affairs and the Law of the Sea, DOALOS, or simply the Division, the context of this presentation, is part of the Office of Legal Affairs of the UN, which provides centralized legal advice for the Secretariat and the main organs of the UN. And you see on the photo there our director and our principal legal officers. The division carries out a number of functions, and you see some of them listed on the screen. However, I would like to focus on a few. These functions are to fulfill the mandate that DOALOS has as set out in the resolutions of the General Assembly on Oceans and the Law of the Sea, on the resolution on sustainable fisheries, and on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. That's the newest resolution. The division also provides Secretariat support to several General Assembly processes, which includes the open-ended informal consultative process on oceans and the law of the sea, and the regular process, which you will hear more about with my colleague Marco. By way of another example, until recently, DOALOS also provided Secretariat support to the BBNJ Intergovernmental Conference, which ultimately concluded with the adoption of the BBNJ agreement, and some of you may already be familiar with this instrument. On the other side, the division is also Secretariat to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, so UNCLOS, or the Convention. Is also Secretariat to the Fish Stocks Agreement, and currently the division is also Interim Secretariat of the BBNJ Agreement until the Secretariat is established. Another important part of the mandate of the division is actually treaty-based, and by this I mean that the division discharges some of the responsibilities that have been entrusted to the Secretary General under some of these instruments. So for instance, the deposit of charts concerning maritime zones or lines of delimitation, these are responsibilities that have been entrusted to the Secretary General through the convention that are discharged by DOALOS. Now, capacity building, broadly speaking, which includes a number of fellowship programs, is an important function of DOALOS, and this aligns mainly with the mandate to promote a better understanding and wider appreciation of the Convention and its implementing agreements, and to assist states with the uniform application and implementation of these instruments through the provision of information, through advice, and through assistance. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, some of you may already be familiar with the convention, and without going on much detail on the convention itself, I would like to offer just a brief overview and highlight a few key aspects, focusing on why the convention matters and really is at the center of capacity building in ocean affairs and the law of the sea, and also why it is directly relevant to the work that you undertake as ECOPs. And with this slide, I would like to highlight that the convention emerged from the Third United Nations Conference on the Law of the Sea that lasted from 1973 to 1982, a negotiation process that lasted 9 years. But beyond that, UNCLOS really is the culmination of a much longer effort to codify the law of the sea, which is one of the oldest branches of international law, which for centuries, as you see on that timeline, was governed primarily by customary or non-written rules. Next slide, please. And so, in a nutshell, the convention opened for signature on the 10th of December of 1982. It currently has 171 states parties. It has 320 articles and 9 annexes. You can see some of the main features or characteristics of the convention listed on the screen. However, I would like to emphasize on the first two, on the fact that it is comprehensive and that it is integrated. So the convention is comprehensive because you will oftentimes hear that it is referred as the Constitution of the Ocean. And this means that UNCLOS provides the legal framework within which all activities in the ocean must be carried out. And to give you a broad sense, the convention contains rules governing a number of issues, such as navigation or the exploration, exploitation of living and non-living resources, the protection and preservation of the marine environment, marine scientific research, the laying of submarine cables and pipelines. It also establishes compulsory mechanisms for the peaceful settlement of disputes, so it's all-encompassing, it's comprehensive. How did the convention achieve all of this? First, by codifying existing international law, so for instance, the freedom of navigation and a number of freedoms in the high seas, and then also by creating new regimes and new institutions. So for example, it introduced the principle of common heritage of humankind to govern the area, which is the seabed and the subsoil beyond national jurisdiction. It established the exclusive economic zone, where coastal states have sovereign rights to explore and exploit its living and non-living resources. It also recognized the possibility of some states to for some states to extend their continental shelf beyond 200 nautical miles. So it introduced these new institutions. Another key characteristic, as I said, of the convention is that it embodies an integrated approach. And this means that it recognizes, first of all, that all issues concerning the ocean are interconnected. And so it brings together economic, environmental, scientific and technological aspects of marine affairs. So all of these aspects cover and recognize under one instrument. Next slide, please. Now, the convention also has 3 implementing agreements, and you see the full names on the screen. The first of them is the agreement that relates to Part 11 of the convention. Part 11 concerns the area, which is the seabed and the subsoil beyond national jurisdiction, essentially the seabed and subsoil that is not within the continental shelf of coastal states. The second implementing agreement is the UN Fish Stocks Agreement, and the third implementing agreement, the recent BBNJ agreement. Next slide, please. The convention also establishes 3 bodies, and you see them on the screen as well. The International Seabed Authority, which is based in Kingston, Jamaica, the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, which is based in Hamburg, Germany, and the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf, which meets in New York. Next slide, please. So, as I said, the convention is the framework that governs all aspects related to the ocean, and it contains provisions that range from maritime boundary delimitation to conservation, utilization of living resources. So, for instance, think of fisheries, marine scientific research, navigation, etc. Next slide, please. Now, how does the convention regulate all these various aspects? It does so through what we refer to as a zonal approach. And this means that the convention divides the ocean into different maritime zones and allocates specific rights and obligations to states within each of these maritime zones. So I won't go into detail here, but for those of you who may not be familiar with this graphic, maritime zones can be broadly divided into those that fall within national jurisdiction and areas beyond national jurisdiction. And the key idea to keep in mind when looking at this diagram or any similar diagram is that the closer an activity is to the coast, the stronger the rights of the coastal state, and the farther the activity is from the shoreline, the greater the rights and the freedoms are recognized for other states. Next slide, please. So why is this framework, why is UNCLOS relevant to your work as ECOPs? So connected to my last slide, it does define the operating space where you will work by providing the legal framework within which activities take place. So for instance, UNCLOS would determine who has the authority over marine resources and what are the relevant legal obligations that would apply to specific ocean-based activities. So to those of you who are working, for instance, on marine special planning or area-based management tools, understanding these jurisdictional boundaries is essential for ensuring compliance with national and international law, and also when designing projects that are, yes, legally sound, but also internationally recognized, if you wish. Now, UNCLOS also directly governs and has a specific part on it, Part 13, on marine scientific research. And so this will shape how ECOPs design and conduct and share their work and how they obtain, for instance, research permits. So, for example, if scientific research is meant to take place in the exclusive economic zone of a state, then the consent of the coastal state is needed. So it is really important for ECOPs to be familiar with the relevant rules to better navigate authorization processes, to better collaborate with national institutions, and to also adhere or comply with data sharing or with reporting obligations, for instance. The convention also provides the legal framework for ocean protection and sustainable use, which is directly relevant to those of you who, for instance, may be working in conservation and resource management. So the convention recognizes rights for states, but also oblige states to protect and preserve the marine environment and to manage living resources responsibly. And so ECOPs involved, for instance, in fishery science or in conservation, they would have to rely on the convention when developing management strategies, for instance, or when assisting decision makers or advising policymakers. The convention is also highly relevant for the future trajectory of ECOP's careers as it underpins emerging and complex ocean issues. So think, for instance, of deep seabed mining or the climate-ocean nexus and the development of the blue economy. All of these aspects are also governed by the convention. And there are really multiple examples, and you would definitely know more about them than me, but the idea here is that really a better understanding of the convention allows ECOPs to be better positioned to engage in interdisciplinary work and also to contribute to, for instance, international negotiations and to shape sustainable ocean governance in the long run. Next slide, please. Now, with this idea in mind, I now turn to the fellowship programs that are implemented by the division, which, as I mentioned earlier, they really are a very important part of the work that we undertake at DOALOS. So DOALOS currently implements 3 fellowship programs with the support of the Nippon Foundation. This collaboration with the Nippon Foundation has been in place for over 20 years now. And so you can imagine that over the course of almost 2 decades of implementation, now we have a network of over 300 alumni from more than 90 states. And this network also benefits from some of the activities that are organized under the alumni program that is also implemented by DOALOS, and which activities are also conducted thanks to the support of the Nippon Foundation. Besides these fellowships that are supported by the Nippon Foundation, the division also implements the Hamilton Shirley Meresinge Memorial Fellowship. This fellowship was established in 1981 by the General Assembly, and it is implemented thanks to voluntary contributions to a dedicated trust fund. Next slide, please. Now you can see on the screen the 3 fellowship programs that are implemented by the division with the support of the Nippon Foundation. And these are the Ocean Affairs and the Law of the Sea Fellowship, which runs for 9 months, the Strategic Needs Fellowship, which runs for 4 months, and the SEEDS Fellowship, which is a 3-month program. So in general terms, all 3 fellowships are open to nationals of developing states only. The 9-month fellowship is open to mid-level ocean professionals, while the strategic needs and the SEEDS fellowships are open exclusively to government officials. And here I should also say that the SEEDS fellowship is open exclusively to nationals from small island developing states. Now, the overall aim of these programs is really to build capacity in the law of the sea and in ocean affairs, and this is done through a number of targeted training activities and also through opportunities that are offered to fellows to observe intergovernmental meetings that are taking place at United Nations headquarters while they are here in New York. And the idea is to better equip ocean professionals so that they can apply this knowledge when they return home, and particularly in the design and the implementation of ocean policies and regulations. The training is delivered by DOALOS staff, by colleagues from UN specialized agencies, and also by experts, especially from our academic host institutions. At the moment, we do have a network of about 50 host institutions worldwide. And I would definitely be very happy to provide more information about the programs. I will leave some of the links on the presentation that will be shared with you later. But I wish to emphasize that we do welcome applications from a wide range of professional backgrounds, not only law and diplomacy. And in fact, we do place great value on ocean science professionals who are looking to just enhance their understanding of legal and policy frameworks. And in this regard, I would say that we're also seeing an increased participation from fellows with diverse scientific backgrounds. And this not only enriches the learning experience for all the fellows in the group, but it also speaks on the importance of bridging science and policy closer together. And with this idea of bridging science and policy, I'll hand over to my colleague Marco for the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you everyone again. So as I mentioned, I'll be talking a little bit about the regular process. It's well, the full name is the usual UN style, so it's a little bit long. But as you can see in the screen, is regular process for global reporting and assessment of the state of the marine environment, including socioeconomic aspects. So this is just referred to as regular process. So I'll just provide a background on this process, where we are today, and possible entry points for ECOPs. So currently we are in the fourth cycle. So every cycle is made of 5 years. So we just finished the third cycle last December, and now in January this year we started the fourth cycle, which will end in 2030. Just to provide you with some sort of background on the evolution of this process, you can see that the process started back in 2002, the World Summit on Sustainable Development, and then gradually moved through that in the UN resolution process and makings with the preparatory phase, and then which then launched the creation of the first assessment of assessment. So that was really the first time that a document like that was produced by the General Assembly. After that, it was decided to have to design this process in cycles, with each cycle being of 5 years, as I mentioned. So the first cycle was from 2010 to 2014, which resulted into the first World Ocean Assessment, which was the first time that an integrated ocean assessment was developed by the UN. And I will talk a bit more about the specific assessment being the main output of every cycle. Going on to the next cycle, second cycle was from 2016 to 2020. It produced the technical abstract on the first assessment and then the actual second World Ocean Assessment. As you can see, as we move towards the next cycle, every cycle has a bit of more output. This is also thanks to the resources that were granted by member states to this process. So this is why in the third cycle, as you can see, which ran from 2021 to 2025, we had thematic summaries on the second assessment. For the first time, a capacity building program aimed at strengthening the science policy interface that I will talk a bit more in this presentation. And then the actual third World Ocean Assessment, which is in the process of being edited and launched in the next couple of months. And then the thematic summary on the same third World Ocean Assessment. So as you can see, it's quite between the first and the third cycle, the activity is quite expanded. And in the fourth cycle, which, as I mentioned, just started now and it will last until 2030, we have, of course, as a main output of every cycle, another assessment. So there will be a fourth world ocean assessment where we hope that some of you will be able to participate, and I will explain how. And then we also have, for the first time, a digital platform. It was asked by member states to be developed because it was felt that having such a large assessment just in a static PDF is certainly not the best way of bringing these informations out to the world. So this is why for the first time there will be a digital platform assessment, an assessment in the form of a digital platform. So this will certainly facilitate the distribution of information and extraction of information. So I'll also on this, I'll provide a bit more information later in the presentation. And then we will be doing again another capacity building program, always aimed at strengthening the science policy interface. I will explain how ECOPs can participate also in here. But in a nutshell, it's mainly in the form of regional workshops and symposiums. So we try to bring people together and talk about lessons learned on how science policy interface should be done. So I will talk a bit more about that. And then, of course, thematic summaries also on this assessment, fourth assessment will be developed. Thematic summaries, of course, a main output because in a sense, even though now we do have the digital platform, it's still important to have succinct documents of 10, 12 pages on a specific theme within the assessment that can be extrapolated from this large publication and put into a smaller document for policymakers. So I will mention that later in the presentation. And then in here, I wanted to talk about the governance structure of this process, mainly because you will see that for the first time in this fourth cycle, ECOPs have been given a role in the governance structure. So that's how important I was mentioning that it's actually been recognized at the institutional level. So as you can see, this process sits under the General Assembly, and there is then an ad hoc working group of the whole, which is in a nutshell, it will be the equivalent of a meeting of states parties. So that's when the states meet to decide and take decisions or consider any given outcome or documents that is produced by this process. But this meeting only meets once or twice a year. So this is why, as you can see right below, we have a bureau. So bureau, which represents all member states as 5 countries per regional group. And this meeting, this group meets regularly and takes decision intersessionally, so that we do not need to wait the meeting of members of the states to take this decision, since it's a very organic process. So it needs to take decisions and take direction rather quickly. Then, as you can see next, is the group of experts. So group of experts is really the leading experts of this process. It's 25 members. 5 per regional group. I will also provide an update on where we are, but at the moment we do have still 4 vacancies, so I can talk about it later. But yeah, it's really the overall coordinator and responsible for this process. So right under them, for the first time, it was decided that short-term consultants for thematic coordinations and ECOPs be hired for short contracts. So not just on a voluntary basis, but also with some sort of paid contract to help this group of experts in specific tasks related to the production of the assessment. So this is because realizing that even though the group of experts it's 25, is not easy to cover the entirety of the topics covered by the World Ocean Assessment just by 25 members, since that, as I mentioned, the assessment is an integrated assessment, so it covers literally every single aspect of the ocean, which is rather a different take than other similar processes like IPCC or IPBES, which focus in more individualized topics. So this is why this would be a great opportunity for ECOPs to join this process and provide help to the thematic coordination consultant for thematic areas. So the assessment, of course, has various chapters. Just to give you an idea, the current Earth assessment has 60 chapters, and it was written by more than 700 people. So, of course, it's a very large undertaking. But this is why it was felt that there was need of a level of coordination in between the next level, which is pool of experts. So as you can see, all these names, but just to explain that the pool of experts is really the basis of this process, in the sense that any member, including ECOPs that want to be part of this process, need to be nominated to the pool of experts. So I will explain how this is done. It's very simple. In the past, it was only those experts that were recommended by countries that were able to be inserted. But in order to open the door to everyone, now there is a possibility of self-recommending, so people can self-recommend themselves to this process, and then we, Secretariat, we will bring your self-recommendation to your country for endorsement. So every member still has to be endorsed by its country in order to be included in this process. But different from before, we will actually take care of that. So you only need to be applying a simple online form, providing a copy of your CV, and then we will bring your nomination, your recommendation to the attention of your country for endorsement. Once you're included in this pool, which is currently in the ranges of about 2,000 experts, then you will be able to be picked for any given role in this process. It may be a member of the writing team, a peer reviewer, or maybe this one that I just mentioned, helping the short-term consultants for thematic coordination of the entire assessment. So it's a needed step indeed, but as I said, it's rather easy. And of course, I'm very happy to provide more information if needed, even on a one-on-one basis. So please let me know. Then, as you can see next, we do have the Secretariat, which sits in DOALOS. You already heard the presentation from my colleague about our activities. And then national intergovernmental focal points, which are a key role in the sense that they are the one that confirm the inclusion of experts in the pool of experts, but at the same time, they also raise awareness of the process and the activities within their government, so that we're able to make sure that any output or information that is produced is able to reach every country. So I think that just to provide you an idea of the governance structure. And then, as I mentioned, the actual group for this cycle, every cycle there is a new group. At the moment is missing 2 members from the African group and 2 members from the European group of states. So we're trying to make sure that all the full complement of 25 is nominated, to make sure that the distribution of work and tasks is balanced. As you can see, the joint coordinators are in the process of being nominated. It's an internal election that is done within the group, and those should be made available and publicized next week. Just to provide you with a very brief information, especially for those of you new to the regular process and the World Ocean Assessment, I wanted to provide a quick snapshot on the content of the third World Ocean Assessment. As you can see, or for those of you that were familiar with the assessment, the first assessment was really the baseline study on the state of the marine environment, because it was the first time that the General Assembly concluded such an exercise. The second assessment was mainly an update to that baseline. The third assessment, the group of experts decided not to do just a simple update, but to actually, on one hand, provide still an update on relevant parts, but also provide new elements and forward-looking scenarios. So this is why you can see that in addition to the overall summary, and there is also a section on the governance, which was for the first time inserted into the assessment. And then, as I said, there was a section on update from the third World Ocean Assessment. So we still were able to keep that, but not as a main component of the assessment, but rather one of the components. And then, as I mentioned, there is this so-called Sustainable Inclusive Ocean Economy section, which includes chapters that focus on human activities in the ocean, with each chapter specifically including content relating to pressures and governance and an option for supporting sustainability pathways. So I think I just wanted to provide that, and then ending also with a new element, which is the One Health element section. And then, of course, also for the first time, we had cross-cutting teams in the assessment. So gender and traditional knowledge was one of them. So also for the first time, the assessment was able to address this, so such an important topic, primarily also having a specific chapter on gender, not only as a cross-cutting team, but also specific a single standalone chapter on gender and on ITLK, traditional knowledge. So this was definitely an interesting breakthrough from this process, and we learned a lot from it. And for the next one, it's not clear yet what the assessment, the next assessment will look like. Of course, it's too soon. I will explain what is the process in order for the next assessment to be shaped. But just to provide you again with continue with more information on the current third assessment, which is in the process of being finalized and launched in May, June of this year. As I mentioned, this will be done in the form of a digital platform. So I described this before in the sense that it was asked by member states that the document not just be a static PDF with so many pages, but actually to try to make it more easy to read and accessible. It was felt that a digital platform similar to other assessment would really facilitate the extraction of information from such a comprehensive document. So this is what has been done. We're currently working on this with the Grid Arendal, which is based in Norway. So some of you may have heard. So they're helping us in building the framework where the platform will navigate. So we're almost there, and the launch will be done through the platform towards May and June. And then, as I mentioned before, two thematic summaries on this third assessment are in the process also of being launched. One will be on marine biodiversity, another one on climate change. So all of them will be launched in the next couple of months. When again talking about the different outputs from this fourth cycle, I think I mentioned, of course, the assessment being the main one, but we do also have other outputs. So just starting with the assessment, this year we have 5 regional workshops on the scoping of the next assessment. So these are workshops that are conducted in the 5 oceanic region, where we bring in experts and diplomats to try to talk about priorities within the region, but also hear from them what was missing or what was not properly developed in the previous assessment, so that we can see what should be changed or what should be added or what should be removed. So this is something that it's a constant element of this process, and has been helping us because we work primarily on lessons learned. So this is also just to see what worked before and what could be improved later on. Then, of course, there will be coordinating others meeting, just like any other intergovernmental processes, and then writing team workshops. So this is where we bring in together a specific group to discuss on possible cross-cutting issues or other issues that the various writing teams are encountering. So that has to do with the assessment. Otherwise, outreach and including the digital platform, it's a new element compared to the previous assessment, in the sense that there will be more work and resources dedicated to the expansion and elaboration of the digital platform, including the database of the pool of experts that I mentioned before. So this is something that we are, member states are realizing the importance of putting more resources into the raising awareness on this output, because realize that all this work otherwise would not reach the full potential in terms of outreach. So outreach and engagement strategy is certainly a priority for this cycle more than any other cycle. And then, as you can see next, we also have participation in intergovernmental processes. So of course, we not only participate in this meeting representing the process and also providing the highlights of our findings through our assessment, but we also ask other intergovernmental processes to provide us with their feedback on specific outputs, such as, for instance, the thematic summaries, where we normally work together with specialized agencies in the field of on the thematic summaries to make sure that everything is properly developed and captured. And then capacity building that I mentioned before, which is primarily aimed at strengthening the science policy interface. This is, as I mentioned, it will be in the form of regional workshops, which are they are often done back to back with the scoping workshop I mentioned of the assessment. So normally it will be 3 days and 2 days, so a total of 5 days. And of course, you'll be receiving the invitations, because also ECOPs are highly welcome. These are fully sponsored by the UN. And then, of course, there will be an international symposium where we present the findings from this regional workshop. But in the regional workshop, just to say a few more words, it is really an opportunity to bring in science policy experts from both sides, from the scientific side and from the diplomatic side, and then share lessons learned on the best and the best theories of practice on how this really dynamic should work. Because indeed, a lot of people talk about it, but maybe they do not know really the best practices or what has been working in certain region and not. So that would be the main component of the regional workshop on capacity building, with also a small component on ocean governance. So normally we try to package it together with ocean governance. So it's a quite comprehensive workshop, especially if it's done together with the scoping. So I will encourage you to apply once you receive the nominations, the application process, because it will be a very interesting experience to participate in both the scoping workshops, but also in the capacity building, because we do really value the participation of ECOPs in these activities. Just quickly again to mention on the development of the actual assessment, as I mentioned, this year we have 5 regional workshops on the scoping, then 27, 28. Based on the findings from this workshop, we will the group of experts will need to work on the development of the annotated outline of the assessment, and then based on that, they will know what type of expertise will be needed, and therefore there will be the next step, which is the constitution of writing teams by selecting experts within the pool of experts, as I mentioned, recalling that it is a required step to be included in the pool of experts in order to be part of this process. And then more or less where ECOPs will be able to jump in the process will be in another entry, because of course also before it will be in this process of 2028, 2030, where we will be hiring a short-term consultant to support thematic summaries coordination, where also ECOPs will be welcome to apply and help this short-term consultant in thematic coordination of the assessment. And then again in 2028, 2029, that's why we will have 3 coordinating authors meeting and 3 writing teams workshops. And then of course, 29, 2030, it will be the multi-stage review of the assessment, which includes multiple rounds of review by all member states. So it's a quite of a lengthy process. Of course, first there is a peer review process done by peer reviewers and UN agencies, and then the entire document is sent to member states for comments. And normally this can take 2 or 3 rounds to make sure that all member states are happy with the drafting of the document. When we're talking about output 2, as I briefly mentioned before, the outreach and engagement, as I mentioned, dissemination of information, it's a key role, and this is why we will count on ECOPs to help us with that. This is done in the form of development of informational material, briefing and side events that we do in the margins of other intergovernmental meetings, participation in intergovernmental meetings, and then of course an enhanced digital platform, which is what we'll be working on during this cycle. On the output 3, which is the engagement with other processes, as I mentioned, we will have a scoping exercise that is then followed by the development of the thematic summaries, and then of course this will be done in tandem with and together with other UN agencies, where we're going to ask their feedback, something similar to what you see on the screen on the right, For instance, these are brief documents on the second assessment. As you can see, we did one on climate change, where, of course, for instance, IPCC was involved, marine biodiversity. So as you can imagine, IUC UNESCO, CBD, UNEP, and then one on SDG 14 and one on the relevant decade. So this is just to provide you with an example. Output 4, I think I already mentioned the capacity building component. These are regional workshops that, as I mentioned, will be held back-to-back, ideally back-to-back with the scoping workshop this year in 2026, and then also back-to-back with the writing teams meetings in 2028. So normally we try to do this back-to-back also for it's more efficient, and I also realize from the feedback of surveys that we did that the participants really are able to absorb more when they're part of the entirety of this workshop, not just the capacity building component. So there will be, of course, a survey, a pre-workshop e-learning activity, which will be developed in partnership with the World Bank Ocean Governance course, which is to be done prior to coming to the workshop. And then, of course, it's the aim of this is to support discussions on science policy module during the workshop. So that we're aware of who's in the room, how much the people know in the room, and what they would like to also hear on the specific lecture. And then, as I mentioned, always part of the capacity building will be the symposium, which last time was done at IUC UNESCO in Paris. We do not know yet when the next one will be held, but this is to discuss the scoping priority of the next assessment, and also, as I mentioned, the outcomes from the regional workshops held in 26, and of course to launch a preparation process for the assessment. So it's a combination of different topics. So just to conclude, and sorry, I'm a little bit over the time, in terms of the next steps and how to engage, as you can see, and of course the presentation will be made available, but so there will be possibilities of host or support regional workshop for coordinating authors and writing team meetings. So in case perhaps one of the institute or your institution will be interested in doing that. Nominate or recommend an expert to join the pool of experts, which include, of course, yourself as a self-recommended in case you're interested. And then once you're in the pool of experts, of course, you'll be able to mention what type of activity you would be like to do, you'll be selected for in this process. So, for instance, peer review process or participation in meetings and discussion. So the call for to nominate expert to the pool of experts is an ongoing process. So if you go on the website, it's still open. It used to be cycle by cycle, but now it's an open-ended process. So there is really no deadline. The only thing is that, of course, at this stage, we do not know yet the areas of expertise that are required for the next assessment because the outline is not out yet. This is an information that will be made public next year in early 2027. But nevertheless, you can think that most likely most of the areas of expertise. So if you just take a look at the third assessment, there will be a lot of similarity, not exactly the same, because as I mentioned, every assessment is slightly different. The expert might decide to take a different take on a given topic or theme. But I think by looking at the third assessment, it will be a very good point of reference for you to see whether you see yourself fitting in the preparation for the next assessment. And then, of course, we hope that ECOPs can help us raise awareness about this process and its output, and ideally also join the media campaigns on digital and social platforms. So this is everything from our side. For both Vanessa and I. So, of course, back to you, Anne. And, of course, we're more than happy to take any questions. And also, if needed, we're more than happy to continue conversation with ECOPs also via email. So I think you can feel free to reach out to us should you have any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much to you both for the presentation.